Miracle Reed is a native of Pittsburgh, PA, and has been committed to serving God as well as people since 1994 at the age of 7. It was certainly apparent from the very beginning that her life would be an inspiration to many. Her obedience, passion, and love for God have given her the opportunities to not only preach, but counsel and pastor in the United States, Caribbean, Canada, and now in Africa. She is also the author of multiple books, including When God Vetoes Your Plan and Living Out Loud in a Silent World. She believes that the only limit in life is that which we create, and that one must be open to God without restraints to truly live without limits. So, without further ado, let's meet Miracle.
So, how would I define my turning point or the beginning stages of my faith? I'd have to say that for some people, they're given names that really define their life. And for me, my name has been the very factor that has helped me understand who God was. I can't really say that there's been a time where I did not know God. Having the name Miracle from a very, very early age helped me understand and see the dynamic of my life. Being a premature baby, weighing 1.6 pounds at birth, and 3 months early, I knew at a very young age that God was real, that He existed, and that my life was a reflection of Him being God. And so I don't really have a particular turning point because my faith has been the foundation of my life, my entire life. I don't have the typical story of turning away from God. I preached my first sermon at 8 years old and started traveling the U.S. at 13. And so I didn't really have that typical straying away from God and coming back to Him. I understood at a really young age that God was all I had. Having parents in addiction and understanding the fundamentals of faith and prayer has been the onset of my life. And so I can't really attest to not knowing God or what led me to know who He was, because literally for my life, the existence of me surviving being 1.6 pounds has been the only truth that I've ever known concerning the Lord Jesus Christ. And so that would be kind of my story of understanding the reality of God. When I think of, aspects of my life that have been maybe the biggest surprises along the way, I'd have to say that it would be truly realizing how strong you are in your faith when it matters the most. And when I say how strong you are in your faith when it matters the most, I'm giving reference to the fact as though we often believe we're strong in faith. We often believe that we trust God, we believe that He can do it, but it's not until we're really tested that we truly understand how strong our faith is. And so my biggest surprise along the way has been understanding the strength of faith, and that it's truly the strength of faith that gives us the understanding of what we can do, how we can do it, and how we can pursue really excellence in God, all based on where we are with Him and how we choose to trust Him along the way. That would have to be the biggest thing, the most surprising thing in my life, to see really how the defining factor of my strength and my faith has been the thing that has gotten me from point A to point B, from point B to point G. That's been the huge part for me. The inspiration of being a pastor, as stated before, I started preaching very young. I can tell you that I was probably 4 years old when I could recite everything that the preacher would say at church. And being that I had parents that struggled in addiction, my prayer life with God at a very young age was very much above my years. And so as a result of really having an innate understanding of God, preaching was like second nature to me. No one taught me, as you all know, based on what I've shared thus far. My parents were not pastors. I did not come from a long line of pastors, but I knew deep down in my heart at a very young age that I had something to say of importance, that my life was a reflection of the existence in God, and thirdly, my story could change and transform the lives of other people if I allowed my life to be a vessel for God. And so pastoring and preaching was something that really came about when I understood the dynamic and the reality of how big of an opportunity I had to share Jesus Christ with people and to truly understand that it's our life story that really gives us, if I could use the word, leverage into the other people's lives. Because when people hear my story, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, wait, her family was not pastors? And so for me, it's been my life story and seeing the impact of me being willing to say, God, whatever you want to do, however you want to use me, do it. And that's been the huge thing for me. I pastored in the Virgin Islands for 2 years, pardon me, and then pastored later in British Columbia, Canada for 4 years. And it was a natural process of progression. I had been traveling the US for years and years, and right after university, 10 days after I graduated, the Lord sent me to Virgin Islands. And so it was a very accelerated journey. But in many ways, though it was accelerated, I feel like God had been preparing my whole life for it. That it wasn't something I had to figure out. It wasn't something I even had to chase. It was something that I was able to do as second nature, of truly understanding the reality of God. And so that would be part of my journey in understanding pastoral ministry. And in that, I knew that there were things that God had given me that had the ability to reach and influence people beyond the four walls of the church. And that's where me writing books have come into play. I believe that there's a story that we all have to tell. I believe that there is something that God has placed in each and every one of us that has the ability to empower others. And what better way to do that than through literature? What better way to do that than through literary works? Because everyone's not coming to church on Sunday morning, but there are people picking up books, there are people flicking through the television. And so the more I exhausted my resources of preaching in churches, I knew I wanted to document things. And so I started writing various books. I have 10. There's books on relationships, singleness, understanding the beauty and the joy of being single. A book on addiction from a perspective of being the daughter of drug addicted parents, titled Knocking on the Door of Addiction. There's a few books that are devotionals, a book for worth and value about women, books about dying to be known and know thyself. So books that truly dig and dive into the reality of who you are. What are you searching for? What are you looking for? And also about 3 to 4 empowerment books, 30-day empowerment books of understanding those key principles that just kind of keep you going when you're having a rough day. Those have been, kind of the just, if you will. The first book was When God Vetoes Your Plan. And that book opened up a lot of doors in many different facets, because at some point, each and every one of us has felt like God vetoed some of our plans. Come on, He's vetoed some of our plans. And so that book really helped people see that when God vetoes your plans, He's inviting you to a life without limit, a life that is beyond our plan. And so that's an overview of what those books look like. And I mean, when I think about this whole concept of are you she, how are you pursuing excellence? How are you pursuing God? How are you pursuing His kingdom? I look at it from the perspective of knowing for myself, because as you know, we can only speak for ourselves. And knowing for myself my journey, my understanding of God at a very young age, and literally being willing to say, God, wherever you want to send me, I'll go. In just this year alone, I will have traveled to 3 continents just serving God and challenging myself to come out of my comfort zone that other people might know who He is. And so my process of striving for excellence and striving to be more like Jesus Christ has been my decision to humbly say, God, whatever you want of me, whatever I won't do in life, it means nothing to me in comparison to completing what you have for me. And saying to myself, Miracle, it's not about your plans. Your plans are limited. It's about striving for excellence concerning His plans and what that looks like for our life. So if I would define what Are You She looks like for me, I'd have to say that it would be humbling myself daily and realizing that the bigger picture of life is not about what I can do for me, but how I can benefit God's kingdom by allowing Him to use me wherever He has me.